So I always start by saying that mystics transformed a lot over the I'll say century, right? It's much more of a tourist location. It's a destination for a lot of people. But 100 or more years ago, Mystic was on par with Old Lyme and Cos Cob and Rockport, Ogunquit, Provincetown. I mean, it was an art colony that people visited during the summer, and it was an art colony that artists came to every year, and it was thriving. The Mystic Art Colony itself was formalized in 1913 with the Mystic Art Association. They had their first exhibition the year after that. It took the Old Lyme Art Colony another half dozen years for that colony to formalize the Lyme Art Association. I grew up in Mystic. I played in the backyards of these artists. I roamed the streets, saw the beautiful scenery. And, it was about 20 years ago that I really appreciated the artistic heritage that Mystic had. It just took off after that. It's really been a passion of mine for 2 decades now, researching the history of the art colony, collecting the art, and really finding pieces that show what Mystic looked like 100, 120 years ago when the art colony was thriving. That's what I really enjoy doing. I really think it took the arrival of Charles Davis in Mystic in 1891. He had just come back from spending a decade in France, and he came across Mystic and planted his roots immediately. He brought a French wife and 2 children with him, and they settled down, and he stayed here until he died in 1933. He was from Amesbury, Mass. In Boston originally, so he had his artist friends often come down to Mystic in the 1890s. So to me, that's what really kicked off, I think, the artistic legacy of Mystic was the introduction of Charles Davis in the area. And also Mystic, like many of the shoreline communities, was right on the railroad that went from New York to Boston up the East Coast. So many of the artists would just get off the train and start painting in Noank. There was a stop in Noank and West Mystic and Stonington. So it was very convenient for the artists to come to Mystic and walk to a boarding house and then wake up the next morning and start painting. I think what really set Mystic apart from a lot of the communities is it had everything. When I say everything, right, it had a beautiful village, historic homes. It was on the shore. It had beautiful rolling countryside, stone walls, sort of a bucolic scene everywhere. And then there were fishing villages. So it was sort of a one-stop shop for all these artists. In some sense, Mystic hasn't changed much. A lot of the old houses are still here. And the shoreline is fairly similar today as it was back then. If you're an artist today, you can look at some of the same scenes that the artists saw 100 years ago and paint them. A lot of people I talk to or I meet, and we start talking about art, and they know about my collecting, they're surprised about the art colony that existed here 100 years ago. It's not well known today. I look at it sort of as my mission to educate people and introduce them to what took place here more than 100 years ago. I think a place like Old Lyme, it's still out in the forefront. Old Lyme is well known as an art community. Mystic is not so, but back then it was on par with Old Lyme and all the other shoreline and art colonies throughout New England. So to me, I think that's what my message is. I want people to understand that the importance of the Mystic Art Colony and its legacy of really important and wonderful art that still exists out there today.